This week we are going to discuss practicing spirituality in all its forms and being religious, and the struggle that most people have when they first step onto this path. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hi, I'm Claire Attio.
Hi everyone, this is Ilya Haida.
And you are with Synergy of the Rose, a podcast, a video YouTube channel where we bring you information about spirituality and the spiritual journey. So as I said, this week we are going to look at that old chestnut, religion versus spirituality, and the complications that can arise from that. One, within yourself; two, within family, because those are the two main areas that I know I have come across time and time again as people have started to open up to their spirituality. And I know you, Sylvia, have come across it as well, haven't you? So we want to get stuck into that today, don't we?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest factors when you're starting to practice spirituality is the fact of your old ways or your old traditions and religion, and that clashes all the time. And so a lot of people struggle mostly because of what you've been fed. Like if you believe certain things, it's a sin, or you're going to hell and only bad people practice that, and you have to believe in something. So you grow up with these beliefs and your family, and you don't know what's right or wrong because you know inside your heart what you know and what feels right, and it's going against everything that everyone else is telling you. And I think for me that was one of the biggest things, because as a little girl I've always known, even when I went to church, I always felt like it wasn't right for me. It wasn't something that I wanted to be a part of, because there was more to it. Like I knew there was more to it, and I felt like I was constantly being lied to. And I didn't like that. And I didn't know how to express that as a little girl, as most people, do. And it wasn't until I went and ventured out into different religions to find out maybe there's one that fits for me. And at the end, it was just like when I found spirituality and started practicing with spirits and with Mother Earth, and back to curanderismo and all that, that felt so good, like natural to me. In working with spirits, and we actually do a lot of the same things. I mean, we do rituals, and praying as well, all those things. But that to me felt so natural, and I couldn't explain that to someone who was being indoctrinated into Catholicism or Christianity or any other religion. And I was just like, listen, what fits for you doesn't fit for everyone, and you need to learn that that's okay. And so I've actually learned that, but it's hard for other people to, I guess.
Well, I think the problem is we need to take, and I'm not dishing, I do not mean what I'm about to say with any disrespect whatsoever, but many of the traditional religions, or all of the traditional religions, have evolved through a handing down of the stories that then man, especially Catholicism, Catholic, I can never say it, the Catholics.
Catholicism, yeah.
Thank you. Especially, we have to remember it was a Roman emperor that commissioned the writing of the Bible, because they could not stop the stem of people following Christianity after the crucifixion of crucifixion. Oh, my words today. It's a full moon. You'll have to apologize. The crucifixion of Christ. And so that's it. That's if you believe that story. That's that's a whole nother episode. But all these religions are the same, because they are stories. And when you actually start to go back and you actually start to research for yourself where these stories emanated from, they go back a long way. So by the time we were actually writing, by the time we were we were developing the Bible, the Quran, all the different religions out there. It was man writing them, and we all know as humans, whether with ill intent or good intent, there will be things misinterpreted because we're all different, because we all have a different perspective. And so this is why you always need to go back. I've always said to people when they've been struggling between their traditional religion that they were actually brought up with and then their spirituality, I said, go back and do the research for yourself. Because traditional religion will have us believe that we shouldn't be walking both paths. Anybody that's on the spiritual path and has done a lot of research and worked and feels and they feel comfortable in who they are, many spiritual people work with religious deities. So they work with the teachings of Jesus. They work with the teachings of Mother Mary. They work, they work with the teachings of Tara. They work with the teachings of Salve. Whatever religion, whether you're coming from Hindu, Buddhism, they work with those deities, the main deities of those religions. They just don't work with the written word of man. They keep their autonomy, they keep their individuality, they do the meditations or incantations or journeys or whatever it is, that whatever facet of spirituality they resonate with and they use, and they connect with those energies and they feel in for them for themselves, and they make a individual choice as to how they're going to work with those energies. And I think that's the difference. Conventional religion has taken away that individuality because whether good or bad, they had an agenda and they want you to follow that agenda. They don't want you to filter off.
Yes. And also, a lot of them that work with spirituality and shamanism and work in our field like we do, most of them have actually studied all religions because they go through a period of trying to find out the truth. And most of them have. So for them, a lot of people think that, we just went one way. It's actually, no, we arrived at this place because we have already studied Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, and everything in any organized religion. And they're the more that you study it, the more that you end up where we kind of are. And that is another thing that for some people, it's like, you don't know. It's like, actually, the majority of the people that are practicing this, they know quite well. And that's why they choose to go back.
They see the similarities. I think that's the thing. You see the similarities between the deities, the gods, the stories. Okay, the names may be different, the circumstances slightly different, although usually not. It's usually just the name changing.
It's the same stories,
same story.
It's the same stories and the same practices, and and to me, it's like, that's great if that's what you guys want to do, and it feels right for you. It has to be right for you, and it has to feel right. And to me, it's like when someone goes like, I'm Muslim and I practice this and I'm happy, good. I'm not gonna take that away from you. Or if I'm Christian and I the Bible studies every day and you feel right, that's for you. As long as it's for you and you're not pushing your own beliefs on somebody else, that's great. I don't do that to anybody else. Actually, most of the time, I don't even tell anybody what I practice or what I believe in, because I know, one, the first thing is they don't understand it. And for me to sit there, and I don't know how you feel, but I'm like, okay, here we go again, having to explain everything. Versus, and I'm open-minded about where they're at in their journey, but I don't think they are for me. So I just go, I practice, this and that. And then there comes to questions, and I just go, okay. So to me, it's kind of like, how do I feel about today answering the 1,000,001 questions? And sometimes, especially if you've been working or you've been practicing, that drains you as well. So you have to be in a good mindset. I've had a conversation just this week about that, and to me, it was kind of like your way of questioning me is almost like an attack. I said, yeah, I haven't done that for you. I haven't told you you're wrong because you're following the crowd and you're a sheep. Why do you think it call you guys lambs? Because lambs follow. And so I could have gone so bad about it, but I was just like, listen, you're on your journey and you're going to have to figure out and get to that point on your own. I said, for me, this feels right. I said, I feel more with church in the forest, in nature, than I will ever feel in a building made by men. And
it's interesting. You're talking there, sorry interrupting you, but I'm thinking of Rosalind, and everybody, because of the Dan Brown book, will, have some kind of knowledge of Rosalind Chapel. And when I went there, obviously it was after the Dan Brown. I hadn't gotten there beforehand, and I almost cried because it'd been desecrated. That church of old never had any windows and never had any roof, and it was open. It was a place of worship, but it was open to the elements. And yet progress and everything else. And it was, I can remember being there, touching the stonework, and feeling the sadness, feeling the resonance of the building itself, and that resonance being of sadness because there was such a lack of understanding. I mean, was it great? The whole Dan Brown book brought attention to it. Yes, it was, in the sense that the family could then afford to save it, as it were. But there are lots of things within that where the stories is like one pillar is what they call the apprentice pillar. It's actually a yew tree. And if you actually go there and you listen to the story, it's very different from the actual druid story of why the yew tree, my words today, the yew tree was actually made into a pillar there. A very, very different story. And I think these are the things that people, they become so fixed. But I think this is a thing in society, and I think this is why spirituality is making, because there is so much doctrination going on in all facets of life, not just religion. I mean, we've only got to look, which again is another podcast altogether, is what's happening within the education system with kids at the moment. What they're being told, what they're being fed, and it's been going on for years, but it's really increased exponentially, ridiculously. The kids don't have the freedom anymore to become individuals and to use their own mind and their own discernment. And of course, this is what spirituality promotes. And so a lot of people are fearful of it. I mean, the one thing I want to say is the one phrase that always sticks out in the Bible for me is know thyself. Now, if that doesn't speak of discovering who you are, standing in your power, owning who you are, and truly being yourself, I don't know what is. Know thyself. It's written in the Bible, and yet it's kind of skipped over, as you said. Oh, no, let's all go in this direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, with that word itself, it's you're your own church, you're your own temple. I think it's also in there.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that's why spirituality is such an individual, not even religion, it's just an individual practice, because like you and I, we're just totally different on how we work, what we believe, and because it's our own personal journey. And I think that's what everyone's working. Everyone has their own personal journey. And my problem and I say problem, because I find that predominantly in the Christian, not so much Catholicism, but Christian here in America, the Baptist Christians, is that you have to fit in their box, or otherwise, you know, you're not right. You're not in the right path. And for me, that's kind of like, okay, that there's something wrong with that. And if you don't see that, if you don't question that, and the minute you question that, they attack you. Because why? Individualism, and for you to think, it brings danger to them. It exposes them. And so for me, it's kind of like, okay, I'm not going to tell you, but question it for yourself. Question why you're doing what you're doing. Does it feel right? Because a lot of it is just attacking. And if your religion, as many have said, is based on attacking other people, hurting other people because of what you believe, and let's not go far, the Great Crusade, you know, how much people have died in the name of God and Jesus, and like, you need to think about that as well. It's easily people.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say America, though, has got an even bigger problem in religion at the moment. It seems to be there's so much doctrination going on there, and so much manipulation, sublingual manipulation within the system to separate and segregate. And religion is just one of the cancers amongst many, many cancers that are going on.
That's a whole different thing. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But even in spirituality, you're starting to see how they're starting to build these little cults and these little programs. And I always tell people, if you find yourself going to every day working on your spirituality with, I don't know, a head person that tells you how to do things, that's religion. Okay. Because I know you and I, we go to retreats, and we call them retreats because it's the only way we can actually tell people how to explain it easily. But it's more of when you have other people to work with you, the energy becomes stronger. So you help each other. And, you know, as healers, you also need other healers to help you as well. So, but everyone is very individual. It's not one size fits all.
No.
Whereas if you find yourself, and if you're looking for spirituality and you want to work on this path, you have to do it alone. You can't just go somewhere and be like, oh, this is how you're going to do it. Because now you're still falling into that practice. You're continuing with the same practice of organized religion. It's just they're going to tell you, oh, spirituality, and we're going on this retreat for 27 or 30 plus people, and we're all going to sit there, and, you know, and to me that's quite scary as well, because that is another way of as well, like, controlling people. And as I said, it is within yourself. It's how what resonates with you, what makes you happy, what brings you joy, what brings you peace. And as well, when you practice, like, why are you practicing? What's your purpose? For me, it's healing others, helping others. And I dive myself into, you know, the plant world, because I discover so much from it, as well as spirits, talking to spirits and guiding me. And most of the time, it's not even about me. It's about healing the world. And why am I here? And as well as for you. So it's very individual. And I think that's what I want to let everyone know. It's a you process.
That individuality is interesting, because when you were talking there, I had somebody reach out on my other channel asking me how I do my cord cutting ritual. And I actually said to them, I don't. If you're looking for a 1, 2, 3 protocol, then I don't subscribe to that. I can give you an idea, and I have on that. I've given 2 ideas of cord cutting, but I'm not going to tell you how you should prepare your altar, or how you should prepare yourself, or how you should, have ideas. By all means, I'll share my ideas, but it's not a prescription. And when you follow a prescription, the problem with this, and this is what I always say, and I know that you always say it as well, when you're following a prescription, you're so in the head trying to make sure you're doing it right that you do not get the connection with divine. And that is what this is all about, is being able to get yourself in a space where you're not in the head, you're in the heart, and you connect to the source energy. and you are able to listen or feel or see, however you receive your information, the information is coming in that is uniquely for you. And so, like Sylvia said, on these retreats, if you're going to a retreat that somebody says you have to do it like this, or you have to do it like that, or you actually, what I find mostly on most retreats, and it's quite funny when you sit there on them and you kind of sit back and is the gurus or the spiritual teachers that are leading them are not actually doing that. It's the students themselves, because they've been so indoctrinated in higher education, in normal education or whatever, or they're in jobs which are institutional, and so they're used to being in that box. They go to these retreats to find themselves because they've been in a box, but they instantly, with subconsciously, and this is where we need to be really mindful, because they very often don't know they're doing it. They subconsciously follow whatever that guru or that spiritual teacher said is a prescription, and that is not what that guru or that spiritual teacher was about, taught. What they were actually saying is, okay, these are some footprints that you can try out and use and explore and experiment to find what works for you. But of course, because they are so institutionalized, they become little mini, whoever's workshop they did, they become little minis. It's really quite interesting to sit and watch it. And it's, and I'm not saying that taking the mick or being superior to, it's just very interesting to watch it and to kind of stand back and go, oh, right, okay, they're on their journey. Because it's all part of the journey, it's all part of that learning, but the ultimate aim is to have that autonomy, like Sylvia said.
And I mean, I don't want to take away from that. If that's like the first step for you to do this, I think that's great. But if you start following, like you said, the same indoctrination, religion, practice of same thing over and over as the masses are doing, that's one kind of sign. It's like, okay, I'm not in the right place. Because if you do happen to go to a guru or somebody, a leader, that spiritual leader, anybody that's guiding you. I know you were my first as well, and you've never told me you have to do it this way. So what feels right for you? And when I went to somebody else, it was like, you have to do it this way. And I was just like, yeah, it doesn't feel right. So that was a great way of knowing that it has to feel right for you. And if you are in something like this and you're constantly questioning, it's not right for you. Even though sometimes, and there was one book actually that I read a couple years ago, that really made me question everything. And it was about a yogi. And some of the teachings were so hard. And like I said, a good guru, a good yogi, a good spiritual leader is going to challenge everything you've ever believed in. And something is not going to sit right with you, because they're trying to take you away from this indoctrination that you have been passed down. And a lot of it, some things are hard to digest because you just can't fathom that idea. For me was a lot of it trying to accept myself first so that I can accept others. And I know that everyone always talks about that, but it's like you really can't move forward if you don't start with yourself. So, and that to me was like, okay, having to go back and deal with everything I never wanted to deal with. I always constantly have to go back and talk to my demons. But that's kind of the way you're gonna have to move forward in order for you to heal others. And you can't really, there's no really other way. You can't. And that again goes back to know thyself, and love thyself, and it's even like, if you read the Bible, it will tell you in there as well, like, okay, you are your own temple. And it all goes back to you. your heart, your Trinity, and the whole Trinity. What I was told is like, the mind, heart, soul. So that, if anything, if you start questioning things, you're kind of in the right path. We're constantly questioning stuff. Everything. And I remember, and I have a story, like when I was trying to go into Baptist Christianity, and they asked me a question: do I believe in, healers, and do I believe in, ghosts, and do I believe in UFOs, and do I believe in aliens? And I was just like, yeah, of course I do. I'm like, first, I see them all the time, like spirits. And I was like, and I can't be that egotistical to think that we're the only living creatures.
And also, it's in the Bible.
Yeah, and so
himself was a healer.
And they didn't like my answer, so actually, I was asked to leave.
And you are going to get that because people will feel threatened. So I mean, it's the thing is, you will, and this is again comes back to know thyself. Why it all comes back to you, because you've got to do your own healing. Because if you've got some rejection wounds, abandonment wounds still festering within you, that will hurt.
Yes.
Whereas if you've done that inner work, you just go, okay, they're feeling threatened, and you just walk on.
Yeah.
You don't harbor any ill will. You don't think anything more of it.
I came out laughing out of that office. And my husband, who also went to it, because it was an interview, which I thought was kind of odd to begin with. I was like, okay, we have to be interviewed to be in this. Okay. and this separated us, right? To see how we felt and how the marriage was happening, what we believe and what we believe in children. And they're kind of like, wow, we'll take you, but not your wife. So I was like, that's fine, good riddance. And he actually started developing good relationships with some of the men within the church. He would go out for coffees and everything, and they would constantly try to tell him that he needs to bring me back to the right path, and he would just be like, yeah, like he'll come back, and he's like, oh, so they're just telling me that I need to work with you and this and that, and in my head I'm going like, you obviously don't know my wife.
That's like the whole Scientology thing going on there.
And so I always thought it was really funny because, and he, he's like, I like the guys when they don't talk about that. So I don't mind hanging out and having coffee with them. They're really nice guys. But he's like, but as soon as sometimes it always leads to that. And so I just nod my head. I was like, yeah. And in my head, I'm going like, you obviously don't know this woman who you're talking to. You can't. Like, no, that's not even going to happen for a little bit. And so he does respect that. And, and for him as well, my husband, he does go to church. He does pray in Jesus Christ. And that's his path. He's like, that feels right for me. He listens to scriptures every day. And like I said, that for him works and that helps him, and if that helps him, I'm with him. But he doesn't question what I believe in. He doesn't badmouth it, and sometimes he even asks me for help in certain ways that he cannot understand. But it's never been
well, we're not in competition, are we? This is the thing. It's not a competition. It's about each human finding themselves, and then finding something that helps to support what they believe about themselves. That's all it's about. And do no harm. I mean, always do no harm. That's a forgiven for me, but I do have to remember that doesn't exist for anybody. And when I say do no harm, I'm also talking about not having thoughts of ill intent, because thoughts are still energy. That will still create a karmic cycle. And I think a lot of people actually don't take that into consideration. And I know we can all get mad and we can all get angry and let's be honest, people piss us off sometimes. I mean, I'm a Scorpion, so that's
Yeah,
really easy to do. But
especially our
I,
children. When it comes to our children, I constantly have to watch myself, and I think there's one time I was just like, and then I thought about that, and I was just like, oh no, what have I done? And left. And then, I mean, it was some
it's
story with my
teaching
daughter,
yourself to
but it was,
it's teaching yourself
yeah,
to pull back, isn't it? It's teaching
yeah,
yourself to allow yourself to feel those emotions, but not to project them out in any way. And that is all part of the spiritual path. You learn to do that. Whereas very often, I mean, I'm just thinking of eye for an eye. That is in one of
mm-hmm.
the religious books.
Oh, that's horrible.
And
Yeah, no,
you're just thinking, whoa, 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 whoa. That was written by man. I'm
mm-hmm.
sure that the story that came from was not meant in that vein.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
and I think this is what we need to remember. So I think what we're actually saying here is you can be religious and be spiritual. You can follow a religion and practice spirituality, but you have to learn to really know yourself. And you will probably, depending on what religious avenue you're on, you will probably need to go back and do earlier research than what you've actually been taught in
Mm-hmm.
your local church or in your local synagogue or in your local temple. You will
Yeah,
probably have to go back and find the origins and read the text without any
yeah,
doctrination. I think that's probably what we're saying here. But and we're not in competition. It's not a
mm-mm.
competition. It's about creating healthy, happy individuals so that humanity can live together in peace, in
Mm-hmm.
harmony. And
Yeah,
so that's bye
perfect.
bye from me.
And me. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Till next time.
Bye bye.